It's always the right wing that's arguing they need to put your hand in your pocket and take out well, I always say, the right wing wants to put his hand in your pocket and take away your pornography, your drugs, I don't know, many other things. And the left wing wants to put its hand in there and take away your money. Mm-hmm. And, libertarians just don't believe the government should be able to put its hand in there at all. Just stay out of there, Yes. Whether it's your right to choose, whether it's your property you own, as long as you're not using that gun to harm someone else. Mm-hmm. I mean, cars are very dangerous. If I had a car, I could drive down the street and probably hurt more people if I was going crazy. But there's people driving cars all over the place, and no one rarely intentionally hurts anyone else. There are lots of states in here where you can carry a gun, and people do not harm each other with those guns. We don't see those shootouts and things like that. So, anyway, go ahead. Continue with your story, please.
In fact, the issue of cars, which are lethal weapons, of course, you could kill a lot of people with a car very quickly.
Absolutely.
Curiously, in order to drive a car, you have to learn how to drive the car and demonstrate competence with that vehicle and obedience to reasonable rules of safety. Then, having done that and paid a reasonable fee, what they consider a reasonable fee constantly rises, then you're allowed to drive a car anywhere in the country. What is the situation with firearms in New York State? Pistol carry permit, for example. Well, first, you can't touch a pistol really, legally, except in a class, and it must be an unloaded pistol. You can't shoot one legally until you already have your permit. That is to say, you can't really learn anything about the safe operation of that gun in practice until they already have given you permission to get one, to buy one, in which case they oblige you to buy one, otherwise they take away the permit, and there you are, armed and dangerous.
Never having fired a gun.
If you've been obedient to that ridiculous law, you have never fired a handgun. And handguns are a little bit more hazardous to handle than rifles because they move around more easily.
Right, this is very true.
So you really have to know something.
Saying that, it sounds shocking, the legalization of drugs. This sounds very shocking to people. It makes people nervous. It's always those two topics make people the most nervous. Those two things. How are those two things related?
Now, first of all, let's consider why people get nervous about the legalization of drugs.
Okay.
If you tell a lie, tell a big one, and tell it repeatedly, and it becomes the truth. Particularly if that lie comes from official sources. For 90 years, there have been repeated lies about exaggerating the dangers of drugs. Now, of course, there are dangers and all sorts of things. I can drown myself in that glass of water if I swallow wrong.
It's dangerous to walk down the street in New York.
Sometimes it's even dangerous to breathe. A gnat flies into your nose and you choke to death.
So,
life is hazardous. But people are told that these things are automatically and irrevocably addicting and destructive. They produce violence, the drugs. Pharmacological effects of the drugs immediately produce violence and irresponsible behavior. And people who engage in this consumption are making themselves hazardous to the society and deserve to be punished for that reason. That's the idea, I guess, if one pushes it. It's a complete lie. You don't discover that lie, of course, until you handle the gun, so to speak, before you've had the permit. And to the extent that you have a little experience with this forbidden commodity, you discover that maybe this is not completely correct, that this is not really my brains on drugs. Maybe the heat is down a little lower. Who is telling me what I can choose for myself? Unless I actually do engage in behavior which violates somebody else's rights.
Now, the first question everyone else out there, everyone is watching this, is thinking, is have you ever taken any illegal drugs?
Yes.
That's going to be the first question.
Yes, indeed I have. 45 years of exposure to cannabis. Obviously, I cannot put one sentence after another. My words are strung irrationally together as a consequence of the destruction of my brain. I can tell you one thing that 45 years of consumption of marijuana does for you.
What does it do?
It makes you old.
And you seem all right. You're a productive member of society. What do you do for a living?
I teach mathematics and I write research papers in mathematics.
Wow.
And I continue to do that at the age of 74. The prejudice, of course, is that people can't produce mathematics after the age of 30. I've published my first paper after the age of 39.
Where do you teach?
State University of New York at Paltz.
How many people go to this university?
About 6,000.
About 6,000 people, wow.
Yeah.
So what part of New York is that in? You have to excuse me, I'm...
If you draw a line between New York City and Albany, and about 55% of the way along that line, you put a mark, and you draw another line extending the straight edge, which is the top of Pennsylvania, the boundary between Pennsylvania and New York. Those two lines will intersect approximately at New Paltz.
Well, that answers my question completely.
Now, I want to make something else clear.
Yes.
I am not advocating
the use
of drugs, any drugs, by anybody.
But it doesn't seem to have harmed you very much at all. Your mind seems to be...
People are different from one another.
That's
and
true.
Drugs have different effects on different people, different drugs. There may indeed be some substances that would have destroyed my ability to function. So that I'd be sitting here drooling instead of conversing with you. I've been lucky, of course.
Yeah, you've been lucky. And, you know, I think a person... The thing about, you know, taking drugs, if it's bad, hopefully people will learn that it's bad. If you wake up, if you do drugs, you wake up the next day, you drink, you wake up the next day in the gutter or in jail, and your wife won't talk to you anymore. You know, you'll stop taking them, I hope.
For example, I learned that smoking tobacco was bad. I chain smoked Pall Mall Reds from the age of 15 to the age of 45. Chain smoked them.
Wow.
It was very difficult to stop because nicotine was, for me anyway, a very highly addictive substance.
As it is for most people.
I stopped it cold, and I'm happy that I did. I don't want other people to be required to stop. The secondhand smoke, Chuck, is precisely that.
I've heard that. I've heard that is a lot of junk science. The secondhand smoke is it's not dangerous, it's a lot of junk science. In fact, I believe there was a judge that threw a case out because he looked at the evidence and felt that it was probably junk and that this wasn't good science. And there has been a lot of court cases that have been based on junk science later on. Like, remember the silicone breast implants. Now the companies paid out millions and millions of dollars on those, and now we find out that that was all completely untrue.
Well, probably accepted by people with silicone brain implants.
So what other issues are you running on? What other issues are there in your campaign?
The fundamental issue is the Bill of Rights of the United States Constitution, a document which was intended to limit what government legitimately can do, what acts it can legitimately take, what laws it can pass, enact legitimately against behavior of people against the governed. And that the Bill of Rights has been flagrantly violated for a long time. Somebody has to come out and say that and specify how. The drug laws are a very clear instance of the violation of the Ninth Amendment, first of all.
I heard it explained that the Constitution is a place that you put the government, just like your fireplace is a place that you put your fire. And if the fire gets out of the fireplace, then it becomes a very bad fire. If it's in the fireplace, then it's a good fire. Same with the government. If the government is in the restraints of the Constitution, it is a good government. If it is outside, it has caught the house on fire, and I think that's what's going on now.
Michael Badnarik presented that particular idea, and it's an unforgettable metaphor.
It's wonderful, absolutely. Yes. So,
Now let me indicate how I open.
Okay.
And how I intend to address people. The first question that I will ask is, why does the land of the free incarcerate a larger number, absolutely a larger number, and a larger percentage of its citizenry than any other country on earth? Why does no other candidate for high office like the U.S. Senate,